to another video, and today, happy Independence Day. It's the 15th of August, and today is the Independence Day. 77 years ago, on this day, India got its independence from the British Empire after more than 200 years of the clutches, the absolute terror that the British put upon this subcontinent. Well, today we are independent, and it's been 77 years. So, happy Independence Day. Subscribe. And today's video, as you probably read in the title, is about pre-colonial India. This video is not about the graphics and visuals, or just me talking like a podcast. But we will start. But I just want to get some more information about the independence of India. So, following the independence of India, we had our first Prime Minister, Jawaharlal Nehru, who was kind of a hesitant Prime Minister who led for quite a few years, and he was part of the Congress Party. And so there came the Congress dynasty almost. Lots of Congress leaders until this day, and then a few years ago, the BJP won with the, I think it's the NSA or something, I forgot, NA something, NA Alliance, I believe so. And they won the election, and it's election day soon. It'll be next year, 2024 elections, and India actually has the G20 presidency, the G20 meeting, next month in September. And as you can see, I've written down here in Sanskrit, Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, which is the India's G20 motto kind of saying, which means the world is one family. So I just want you to keep that in mind. And then there's Jai Hind, Azad Ka Amrit Mahotsav, and then that's where what I've written on the left side in English, just on the right. So 77th Independence Day, Jai Hind, but in Hindi. We should get on with the main topic, with India before colonization. What India was like, what was India's advantages, strategies, and just how was it? So we are here. So there are kind of 5 main things that India had advantage. First, shipbuilding. Shipbuilding is one of the is India's main advantages over Europe and basically the rest of the world. India is was and still is now a maritime nation. It has the Indian Ocean, and it has lots of bays, lots of cities, lots of naval cities. But the first navy in India is arguably the navy by the Chola dynasty, according to Advantage by Paki Sharma. But yes, you have one of the first navies, you have amazing craftsmanship from the Bengal area, because their ships are very good. It is said that a Bengal ship will last more than plus 2 to 3 years than a European ship. So, that's true. And this is really big back in those days. You'd say ships now would last more than 30 years. But then, a plus 2 years was really big. And remember, these are just wooden ships. And they had, not cannons, but they'll have lots of weapons. And, just be ready for war. And also lots of maritime trade. Because, regions in Bengal would like to trade with South India. And South India would try to trade with regions in modern day Pakistan. So it's kind of like lots of land trade, but mostly sea trade. That's how things work. It's said that the Chola Empire, which is a Tamil empire in the south of India, which I don't have a map of currently, um, had trade links with Southeast Asia, with Indochina basically. It had trade links with Thailand and some parts of China. So that's cool. And it's same with Telugu kingdoms, Satavahana Empire. Lots of kingdoms came to India. And lots of things. And this is another industry that India was a mammoth in. That's the textile industry. Textiles were one of were like wanted all over the world because they had such good craftsmanship, such good quality that everyone would just want them. Like it is, like people would be like, "Wow, it's Indian textiles, such good quality, handmade." Well, everything was handmade back then, but it was like, wow, that was just like cool. And then there was science. This is supposed to be this is supposed to be like a microscope. But yes, India, believe it or not, was actually very good at science. Arguably more uh, advanced than Europe. And we'll get back to that. And the final chapter, which is culture. So let's go to. We've already done the ship. I'll just explain the more ship. But yeah, the quality was better and there was more use for it in India. And just as I said, the Chola Empire had connections with Southeast Asia. So let's go to the textile industry. Textile industry, as I said, was like had a wow factor because it was such a good quality and it was famous all around the world. And that's what made India an economic powerhouse. It was the world's richest region because of all that trade it made. It was a mammoth. It was an absolute powerhouse in, well, textiles, in shipbuilding, in weapons, and stuff like that because it was good quality and India had population and so many kingdoms. They had the riches. They could make unlimited pieces and stuff. When Vasco da Gama, also another thing, when Vasco da Gama discovered India, quote unquote, discovered India, he didn't discover India. It was the people who went to India first, like the Aryans, like the Africans who came to India first, who started the Indian race. Those are the people who discovered India, not Vasco da Gama. He didn't discover India. He just merely came to it. But the thing is, he came to Calicut, or more Indian name is Kozhikode. But the thing what happened is that when this small kingdom gave like a small donation just to go back to Europe, it was worth more than 5 times the amount that the actual initial expedition worth was. From Portugal all the way to India was pretty expensive back in those days. Imagine 5 times that in gold, jewels, and other things. It's estimated that before colonialism, right before the British came, so around the time of Mughals and Maratha Confederacy, it is known, well, it's guessed that an Indian rupee would be worth 100 pounds sterling. Think about that. 100 pounds sterling equivalent to 1 rupee. It's actually it's the opposite now. I think it's around 89 rupees for 1 pound sterling. So that was shocking. That's kind of cool. And there's one person, or well, not one person, there's one country and company that ruined that. I'll get that to later. And we're coming to science. India was a mammoth in science, from religious text and references to Vimana. Vimanas were ancient flying machines that were described in various religious texts and, well, science that were basically flying, and they didn't use fossil fuels. They were meant to use mercury because it had a solid and liquid form. So it could be liquefied when used and solidified when not. So, Yeah. Another thing, it is said that the okay. I'm just trying. Okay. It is said that the system of control in India is democratic. Yes, we had. That's why we call ourselves the mother democracy, because we were the mother of democracy. We had councils and we had kings and nobility. So let me just show you how it works. I'm just going to draw this. So you had nobility who were royal kind of families who wanted their lineage to be in power of the throne. Let's say we had two noble families in this kingdom, and we had one council. So this is how it works. The council will elect either one or two. Let's just say one or two. Let's say two won this election. So the second nobility would be in power. And so the people could anytime overthrow the council, which and put different council or them themselves make the council up. Then that would trigger another election. So they could either put two or one into place. And if it weren't overthrown, the council itself could say, well, they had two options to take down a nobility family from the royal lineage. So either to, well, like, just take them down, or just, like, go after them and democratically and elect for trigger an election. So yeah, that's cool. And science, I don't know how the conversation started with the Vimana and then ending up with the democratic system. But let's just continue with science. Lots of scientific discoveries were made. For example, when a kingdom conquered India, I forgot which one it was. Basically, they built a giant metal pillar. Believe it was aluminum or aluminium, a pillar in the ground, from the ground. And well, Europe didn't have that technology, but India, it's certified that it happened during those days. And also, another thing, India also had the technology of making one of the finest weapons, as well. We had one of the best swords. We had one of the best. We have the one of the what? It's we have the one of the we have the almost best swords. We had the best chariots in the entire world. We have the best, well, kind of setting, like, terms of improvements, because, well, the thing is, there was this guy, I think it was Harry or something. He's a historian, and he was an archaeologist. He found proof he said that the Mayans and, like, South American tribes were actually really, really smart, and they were more advanced than Europe. But one of the main arguments against him is, why didn't they make plastic? But the thing is, maybe they knew that plastic was very, very bad for the planet, and that's why they didn't make it. So yeah, that's kind of what India's mentality was from the beginning. It's just that they were so far ahead that they were like, maybe this will turn bad. Like, for example, using fossil fuels to power vimanas or chariots. They could have made an engine, maybe. And yeah. And so yeah, that's one of the main, like, 5 things. So let me just, like, do a bit of talk about science. Here's this theory. It's the shivling theory. So when temples and shivling is, it's said that maybe that it's a way of sending a connection. So maybe that the idea of God was prevalent through all kind of civilizations. Like, That's how the South American tribes got an idea of God, and how it spread. It's that they sent a signal through the top of a pyramid. Like, that's why pyramids had the kind of battery, quote unquote, battery kind of power scale and shape and use, kind of. And that's why the tip itself was covered in a certain material, so it would be reflected, so it can reflect this passing on signals, or it could kind of send its own signals. So yeah, and now we're going to talk about colonialism. Why colonialism? Kind of colonism. Bro, I can't speak today. Can't speak today. Just talk the British. The British ruined India. And the thing is, they did. The British can't say that, yeah, we gave you democracy because you guys didn't have democracy. When you colonized us, you guys didn't have democracy. You guys were a square monarchy. We had our own form of democracy in the council nobility system. So yeah, and another thing, another point, I'm destroying British points of this argument. The second point that the British all like to say is that, oh, we gave you trains. Trains are really cool. It's probably said that India had its own trade routes by then. That's how people went around. But the thing is, India would have just, if it had time, kingdoms would have just bought the technology from maybe neighboring Japan or China, or actually made their own, like maybe using mercury or some other energy source. You didn't know that, like, they might had a system that might have used water or fire or horses. Like, you use a horse, and then the moment it gets momentum, the horse gets out of the way, or something like that. We don't know. India wasn't given enough time to develop. It had developed, but let's say we saw India independent in World War. Yes, then it would have been a superpower. It would have been like an ultimate power. Another thing is, another argument that British sympathizers use is that India was not united. And the British united India. No, you guys didn't unite India. You actually divided it more than you united it. Let me explain. Yes, there were loads of kingdoms and things, but most of them were at peace. If they weren't at peace, they were at war. But most of the time, people were smart and realized we're kind of the same people, and we are only divided because of two things. First, it's that the politics and trade. So kings would make less money if they were trading inside of their own kingdom than if they were trading with another kingdom. So yeah, that's one of the main reasons. So they're more or less united by being disconnected. Another thing is that religion. Muslims and Hindus were divided because of the British. But before, there are many records that Hindus and Muslims weren't actually divided like normally. They were peacefully coexisting. If they weren't peacefully coexisting, then how did Hinduism survive, or how did Islam survive in India? Think about that. And another thing is that, yes, what about the Hindus who were mistreated in the Mughal Empire? The Mughal Empire weren't technically Indians. Yes, they assimilated themselves into being Indians, but weren't originally Indians. They came from kind of Pakistan area, but north of Pakistan kind of in the North Afghanistan area. So they weren't originally Indians, but they came to India, they planted it, but them themselves turned Indians. Another thing is that they didn't repatriate these stolen goods. They had no home, so they would just stay. The riches would still be planted, but at least they stayed in the country that they came to. They paid homage to the land that they live in, and they assimilated themselves into. The British, that's the difference between the British and the Mughals. That's why you should not be comparing the two. The British repatriated these stolen goods, sent them back to the foggy homeland that they called Great Britain. And they took the resources. They were more of a burden than the great thing that humans should be talking about. They were more of a burden to planet Earth than, well, anyone else, basically, because they took these resources, spent them on either, well, forcing the local population. They didn't even try to assimilate the local population. They either forced them to quote unquote become fancy or civilized, which we already were. At least we weren't going across the world in primitive ships trying to take them over. Because let me tell you something. If India was aggressive like the British, India had a high enough population to go on a massive crusade. They could have gone lots of places. The thing about you should appreciate is that Indian kings weren't around like, yeah, let's go conquer the entire world. They were like, let's conquer our homeland and unite them for a better peace. Like the Ashoka king found, like, he realized that he was very brutal in killing lots of people to unite his kingdom. So he he realized that improved the lives of his people in his kingdom. He built roads, and he actually had a system of putting trees on either sides of the road to keep you there, and also as a good way of food, because, well, let's say there was a certain food that you could get, like coconuts, well, you would be fed on your long journey. But yes, and also, like, I'm guessing there was a system where different types of tree local to that certain area was kind of like a navigation system for you. So for you, basically, like, oh, a tree that grows in place A, so that means I'm in place A. And then when the tree kind of, when there's a different type of tree, like slowly gradiating into God, I can't speak it. A specific species from place B, you'll realize, oh, I'm approaching place B. So hope you get that. So yeah, the British didn't learn that. India would have probably gone on a crusade if it was like the British. It had lots of science. It had lots of technology. It had lots of people. Remember that. With the British population at the beginning of colonization, the British population, the Indian population was around 250 million people. That was like a lot of people. Now, that's not much today. That's almost the US population. 330 million people is the US population. India's population right now is 1.4 billion and surpassing China's falling population of 1.152 billion. So yeah, that's another thing to keep in mind. So yeah, oh god, my iPad. So yeah, India was advanced and it had a manpower, but it didn't do it. It could have invaded lots of countries. For example, the southern Telugu king, Gautami Putra Shatakani, he united India, most of it. And the thing is, for peace, because he saw the wars and he wanted to unite his people under one banner, one country. And he did. But the thing is, he could have gone further. He could have expanded into Tibet. He could have gone on a rampage down Bengal into Myanmar, Burma, into Southeast Asia, and maybe into Malay. We don't know. He could have, but he didn't, because war isn't necessary. Land is just land. People are the ones that matter. A land does not signify anything, basically, but it's the people. And it's the people, but also the nature. Because without nature, a land is not a land. A land cannot be a home without nature. For example, Antarctica is lots of land, but no nature. Well, there is nature, but none. It's not that can support that much life. And the only nature is mostly penguins, but they live in the sea most of the time. Well, they hunt in the sea. But most, or literally all except penguins, live in the surrounding waters around Antarctica. So there isn't that much nature. But there's lots of land, so why isn't there a country? Because you need nature. Nature makes land livable. And nature plus land is equivalent to a mother. So, thanks for watching. Happy Independence Day. And I'll see you later.